Yeah, yeah. But I was thinking how exciting it used to be in the beginning, right? Like when you were feeling so hopeless and stuck and like you'll never do any other things. And the first Zoom thing that I did, I was so tense but excited by it. And now it's become, yeah.
But I've noticed, and this is because of the very healthy stalking I do of you, that it's nice that you always dress up
Just have to do.
without discrimination for one panel or the other, lesser or more. You dress up for all panels, all talks.
Yes.
Nice, because you know why I'm saying this. When I did 2 years of online classes, and I did all my online classes in my nightie.
No, that's I'm not in that category. In fact, I was just marking that today is the first time since the pandemic began that I did a meeting in my nightie, but that's because I was confused. I thought the meeting was on the phone, but it turned out it was like on Zoom. So then I quickly put one flower clip and pretended nightie is a dress, but I was feeling quite ashamed, much as I love my nighties. So we are live streaming this discussion on nighties. I think we'll become serious now. So.
Become serious. Thank you for joining us, everyone. It's Meta 2022. It's the 10th edition of Meta. And because it's a special Meta, we have a very special person with us on day 3 of Meta 2022. Paromita Vohra is no stranger to the Department of English at St. Joseph's College or to Meta. She judged the Professor Barbara Naidu Memorial Prize for the Personal Essay Contest last year. Our students write religiously for Agents of Ishq, which is a website she founded. And the one thing that my students always tell me when I take your work to these classes is that first they say thank you for introducing us to Agents of Ishq, because I don't feel like there is something wrong with me anymore, which is always nice to hear, because there's a lot of joy that other people feel when they allow people to convince themselves that something is wrong with you. And every time they go to your website, they are convinced that there is nothing wrong with them, and that there is enough space in the world and room in the world to talk about everything that everyone else thinks is not okay to talk about.
It's beautiful.
So this is basically an introduction, but I think what I have for you can't be summarized in an introduction, because you're a very special person in the making of my mind and who I am today. For people who grow up knowing or not knowing what they're good at, or figuring out whether what I'm going to say is right or wrong in classrooms or in workplaces or whatever. Discovering you, Paromita Vohra, was like watching a very good film and knowing in your stomach that this film is going to be a part of my life in a very big way. And when you walk out of the theater, unlike other films, you'll know, because with other films, you're like, I'll go home and my mom will be there, my dad will be there, and I'll go back to my regular life. But you're like a film that won't leave. You're like a film that stays in the stomach through the night, the next morning. And every time there is a problem in my life, and the problem is everything from no one likes me to everyone hates me to aunt bit me today, or that boy ate me today. I think about your flower that you wear in your hair, and the fact that you live in Bombay City, and the fact that I've known you and your work through your writing. And it gives me so much joy that it picks me up from the most joyless moment and transfers me to Bombay, where I think I'm watching you, and it gives me a route to grow up. A lot of young girls don't have that. A lot of young girls don't have roots to grow up. And I'm not young anymore, and I still don't have a root to grow up. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of the young women that I know grow up not knowing how to be young women or older women or any kind of women. And I wanted to ask you, how did you grow? into who you are today? I'm sorry, but I don't have a lot of intelligent questions. I'm just going to ask you very silly questions. Questions like how old were you when you first fell in love? And how was your first kiss like? Because these are questions I want to know answers to.
Yeah.
I will begin with that. How did you grow into who you are?
Well, first of all, thank you for such a warm introduction. And it's always difficult to sit through an introduction because you feel overcome and embarrassed. But in a way, Zoom has made it a little bit easier because you can just be mortified in your own home, at least. But thank you for such a loving introduction, and it makes me happy to hear that. I mean, I think like the only thing I wanted when I was thinking about my work, and maybe it was partly because of lack of confidence, or perhaps partly because of excessive confidence, I don't know. But a friend of mine asked me once what I really wanted uh, from my life. And I said, I want to be famous. And he said, that is such a shallow desire. So I said, no, but I don't want to be famous in the shallow way. Obviously, we all think we don't want anything in the shallow way, right? But I want to be loved for what I do. I want people to love what I do. And they also say you should always be careful what you ask for, because I think like when you speak, I do feel that you love what I do, or you felt love in engaging with what I do. And maybe that was just something I was trying to give to myself, or a world that I was trying to create for myself. But you also come to know after some time that when people really love what you do, it's not the same as being famous. So that was a difficult learning. But I mean, it's hard to say how you grow into who you are, right? Like every time you get asked that question, your answer is a little bit different. Um, I think in my case, if I didn't have really a very easy childhood in the way, like when people are nostalgic about childhood, and I often say this thing that Pushpa, I hate nostalgia, because I'm actually not nostalgic about anything in school, college, and all that. I was pretty I'm pretty glad that I'm not there anymore, to be honest. But I think that, when I was a kid, maybe whatever difficulties I had, I didn't really have too many friends. I was I was definitely a very strange character and didn't really fit in. And because my dad was in a transferable job, I was also always going to new schools. I was fat. So, yeah, it was like it felt odd, and I never really belonged anywhere. But I think that gives you ample time to think about who you are, right? Like often when you easily belong in places, you don't really ask yourself too much about who you are and what you are and why you are the way you are. But when you don't really fit in anywhere, you have a lot of time to think about yourself. Um, and that can be tough. But I think that the thing that it sounds, I don't know if it's believable for people, but it is true for me, that I feel like one of the things I really lucked out on as a kid, despite some challenges, was that uh, I lived in a household which was very committed to pleasure, about very interested in food, very interested in music, very interested in wasting time talking, and clothes, and like everything was there was it was a definitely a childhood, when I look back, saturated with pleasure, from small things like when we would go to my grandmother's house for summer holidays, or come to Bombay for summer holidays to my grandmother's house. In my grandmother's house, there was one kind of completely intemperate, unmoderated pleasure, right? Like nobody was telling you what to do. I would steal money from my grandmother's cupboard. I would be given some money, then I used to steal a little bit extra change. And my grandmother's pet name for me, amongst her many pet names, was Chavanni Chor, because she knew that I would steal like 25 paise and 50 paise from the cupboard. And then I would go to the lending library, and I would come back with such a big stack of comics, right? And then I would read all the comics in one day. But nobody said that what are you doing? Why are you finishing all your comics in one day? Like nobody stopped you from that. My grandmother loved to cook. My grandmother had lots of beautiful clothes, and she would get nice things for us. We didn't have much money when I was growing up, so also going to my grandmother's house was kind of an idea of luxury. There was a lot of my grandmother had a garage which was next to the house, but there was no car in the garage. The garage used to be used for making masala and scraping coconut, and all those extra kitchen tasks were done in the garage. It was very dark and cool, so I spent a lot of time either there or like in some crevice of. It was a Bombay flat, not very big, but that thing of finding some corner and you're just reading in there and doing whatever you feel like, and nobody is really asking you to do anything or account for yourself. uh, that in the end, I think, became a fertile ground to also experience yourself in a good way. So if outside or even sometimes inside, I felt like, oh, there's something really wrong with me. These are all the ways in which nobody can possibly ever like me or be my friend. At the same time, when you're allowed to be and just do the things you like, you also get some time to experience yourself in a good way, or you have good experience with yourself alone. So I think that shaped a lot of what I went on to do in my life, and which has its good and bad points, I'd say. But over time there was also that thing that we would be told that you have to work, and we'd get these little like mini lectures in the car, like whenever my dad was also very committed to pleasure, but in a far more disciplined way, right? So he always felt you should eat nice things, you should have nice clothes, but he also felt you shouldn't be going running wild like we used to run wild in my grandmother's house. He used to despair at that stuff. But when we used to come back from our summer holidays, and we lived in Sikandrabad for some years, which is pretty hot in the summer. My father used to put wrapping paper on the windows. And every summer he would change the wrapping paper because it got torn, right? So that was to keep the sun out. But the excitement of coming back home, my father would have cleaned up the house and redone everything. And on the study table in my room would always be my stack of Indrajal comics and Chanda Mamas, like whatever I had missed, he would keep it neatly for me. So I think like small things like this, or um, my father would hug us a lot. I didn't know that these things are not common until I grew much older, and I heard from many of my friends that it wasn't common to show affection in families. So I think like these actually, it's maybe it sounds silly to say it, but I feel these things actually stood me in a lot of good stead. So even though there was always a sense, and continues to be a sense, of not fitting in and not belonging and not being like I don't know, somehow like correct. Nevertheless, there is also a feeling that there is a lot of joy in the other world that you can be part of, and you can construct that joy for yourself, that you don't have to wait for somebody else to make that joy for you. So I think, yeah, that in a very big nutshell is really what was the shaping thing. And I think like what I'm trying to say through all of this is that on the one hand, there's so much in the world that makes us doubt ourselves, but on the other hand, if you are able to get like even a little bit of affection, even a little bit of love, and quite a bit of enjoyment, it gives you a compass to not doubt what you feel, right? Like, because you know that you have liked something. So when somebody else says it's not good, but you have enjoyed it so deeply, all the more because it was your only companion. The books you read, the poems you read, whatever you did for yourself, because it was your only companion and you felt so good in the company of that piece of art or whatever that thing it is that you were doing, like watching a Hindi movie at the drive-in or eating butterscotch ice cream at Yankee Doodle ice cream parlor in Bombay. Even if somebody else mocked it, I never used to feel as crushed by it as I think other people feel who are more belonging, right? So I think that is what shaped everything I did going forward.
This thing you said about remembering that you had a happy childhood. So many people find it so difficult. Not because they've had unhappy childhoods, which is also the case, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not addressing any pain in the world at all today. I'm not interested in pain at all today because I'm interested in how you choose to remember the happy parts. There's a lot changing in the world in terms of how much reward there is for anger, how much reward there is for correctness, political correctness, how much reward there is in this kind of righteous anger and your right to be angry and other people's right to be angry. And you always seem to me like the warrior for joy. The warrior for pleasure is ironic because you don't have to fight to remember that you like joy. This was a reflection that I had, but I want to quickly now go back to the Paromita Vohra in her 20s. From what I have healthily stalked of you and unhealthily stalked of you, I remember you lived in a tenement home, you said. Couldn't afford much, but you knew that you wanted to be on your own, so you moved out. And you were living in this apartment in a tenement colony on your own. When you first moved in, did everything fit? Did you feel like this is what it was supposed to be? That you are where you were expected to be?
I mean, I don't think that I've ever in my life felt anything fits and that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm a permanently tortured character, even though it doesn't seem that way as a supposedly official warrior of pleasure, but I'm pretty tortured person. But I think what I felt when I moved out was more than anything, I wanted to be on my own because I really didn't feel like I could easily survive too much scrutiny. I think when one of the things is that I also wasn't used to being in one place all the time with one group of people all the time, right? Like I had just moved schools and moved so many places and I'd been on my own so much. And because in my home, you were kind of left alone, even if other things you may get scolded and many other things may happen, bad things may also happen. But in some senses, you were given quite a bit of privacy in my home. I mean, my father had told me that I will never open your letters and I'll never ask you who you're speaking to on the phone because that's your privacy. Not because I trust you, but because that's your privacy. I mean, now when I look back, I think like, what the hell? Like, how did he come up with these thoughts? So he may have been conventional or conservative in some other ways, but these things I think were like huge. So my sense of that privacy was a lot. And when I moved to Bombay, and like in 1990 when I started working, like it was a very different India, and it was very like, first of all, not only were there no internet and no cell phones, I didn't have a telephone of my own, right? And I was staying with my aunt and I was finding it very difficult because I couldn't be free to do whatever I wanted or go wherever I wanted. And I was working in documentary film, and even that was a kind of a strange profession to choose at that time, right? And I mean, it's still a strange profession, but that time it was like, really, okay, what are you doing? And we are so disappointed. You had so much promise, and now you're doing some strange and boring type of thing. Because in people's mind, documentary was film's division, and it's like it had no future as far as people could see. But the wanting to stay on my own was very crucial to me because I didn't want to all the time have to explain things to people because I didn't know the answers myself. And you were at that age, and you're in your early 20s, in your late teens and early 20s, when you're in college and you start working, there's a lot of pressure on you to already know what your life is going to be. Why do you want to do this? What is your future? What are your plans? People ask you these kind of questions in interviews. I went for a job interview after college, and somebody said, so where do you see yourself in 10 years? I was like, I don't know, like in 10 minutes, frankly speaking. So that thing of, I didn't know. I wanted to find out. And I felt in my gut that the only way I can do it is by being on my own, by not having to be accountable to anybody. And so there was like a series of adventures of trying to stay, obviously as a middle class kid, you look for middle class housing and you can't afford it because the work that you're doing is not in that sense mainstream. So you're not earning a mainstream salary. But I think the great difference between, I don't know whether it was me or whether it was that time, but the great difference between what happened then and what I see more commonly amongst young people now is that there is a desire for a minimum lifestyle. And the thing that you want to do isn't seen as the inevitable thing that you have to do within which you'll figure out a road. But for me, I didn't feel that there was another choice. Like, I didn't think that I can earn money and be something else. I wanted to only do those things. And by that, I must clarify that I didn't mean that I wanted necessarily to be a documentary filmmaker. Maybe I did. I really don't know. But it was mostly that I wanted to be someplace where it was not being defined for me what I am, so that I could define it for myself. Right? And so, karte karate, like getting evicted from one house and electricity getting cut in another house, a few months of a lot of drama. Finally, I found this tenement housing colony called PMGP colony. And I'm not alone to have found it. Many people who worked in film had found it. And I think that is so interesting because the fact that there was a small group of people who were trying to do this kind of thing, right? Middle class kids who were trying to have a life that is not written into the script of middle class life at all. And somehow they have all ended up in this PMGP colony, which is how I found a community of friends as well eventually, right? But the thing is, when I lived in PMGP, I found it exciting. I found it adventurous and romantic. I had a window with a little view, and maybe, it's all in the, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. So maybe somebody else would come in and say like, oh my God, you are living in this kind of house. Many of my friends from Delhi or my more middle class friends, well, I'm middle class, but my friends from more middle class neighborhoods in Bombay would come in and they'd be like very awkward that I was living in this tenement housing. But in my eyes, there was a room, it had an attached loo, it had a big window, it had a little very tiny balcony. I was so excited, like having your own doll's house. And so living in your doll's house, right? So I think for me, it was great. I made many gadbad, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't really have anything. I didn't have a stove. I didn't have money, nothing. I carried my aunt's old, that, those rounded kind of fridges that was an all-win pressed gold. It must have weighed like 1 ton. I don't know how I transported it on the train. It didn't used to close. I used to tie it with a wire. I had a hot plate. I had a hot plate which didn't used to work also. It would take 1 hour to make rice. I don't know. Somehow it was like, it was, and rats. There were rats everywhere. Like I picked up my jeans from the hook and there was a rat inside the seat of the pants. Like there were rats in that place, and it was a very big saga dealing with those rats. But through it all, I still feel like, I don't know if it fit, but it just was like there was air to breathe. Um, when I look back on it now, I think it was one of the most significant shaping factors in my life also because, you know, liberals talk a lot about the people, but they never live with the people. And sometimes when they live with the people, it's through the stylization of I will now declass myself. So I wasn't looking to declass myself. Like I had gotten declassed by virtue of choosing certain work, which maybe had a lot of cachet. If you came from a certain, I don't know, like I understood that, right? Like to work in a field like documentary, and to not already have some family connections and property and all of that is pretty damn tough. So it also made me look at the entire enterprise of these liberal professions a little bit differently over the years as I worked in it, and what kind of films get made. The thing that documentaries are made in a certain way by a certain class of people, right? That also started to, like, as a glimmering began in my brain as a questioning at that time. But essentially, who are my neighbors? The guy who used to sell onions downstairs was my neighbor. The people who, I mean, they'll be like, I'll take an auto rickshaw from the station and I'll be like, I want to go to PMGP. And the auto guy will say, huh, you live in number 17, nah, I live in number 14, that kind of thing. So actually and it's not, I'm not saying it was not glorious or anything in the beginning. It was tough because there were just 2, 3 of us girls who were that young, who were working in films, coming home very late. It was culturally very different from what the context was. Obviously, we were like aliens who had landed up in this tenement housing and were living this other lifestyle. So there was enough pushback, and people did wonder, like, who are these girls? And they would try to come and knock at our door late at night, and all of that was happening. But it was a kind of negotiated coexistence over time. And I think that the importance of going into a context which is so different is that you really have your assumptions, social assumptions don't work. Nobody knows because nobody cares you went to Miranda House when you're living in PMGP colony, frankly speaking, right? Like, and so I think that it's good. You learn to really ask yourself, who are you? Who are you without all those things? And you look for these answers slowly and surely and with difficulty and sometimes with hardship and sometimes with pleasure. But I got to say that, some of those things that we see in like Basu Chatterjee, Rishikesh Mukherjee type of films, like a kind of community of people who are trying to live on the edges, a little bit like this. I won't use the word bohemian, but bohemianish type of existence of artists living away from home, all young people in their 20s, trying to figure it out, forming deep friendships, confiding in each other, fighting with each other, but remaining friends. So much that we went through in that time, it was really enjoyable because we also sat together and ate, and we learned to cook together, and we sort of grew up together in that sense as friends. So I think it was a great thing to have in my 20s. I think your 20s should be an opportunity to maybe become somebody else, not just who you're supposedly destined to be by virtue of your births. Um, and it's also at that time, because I had to make a living in Bombay. I also ended up doing many different things. Like I worked in Channel V, then I worked in like writing some soap opera. मतलब जो काम मिल रहा है कर रहे हैं to earn money and that sort of thing. So that also shaped my sensibility, or rather, it was a dynamic relationship. I genuinely enjoyed myself doing many different things, and I think it all sort of shaped my language and helped me to question why documentaries need to always be about some worlds removed from yours, and you are not part of that film, as if to say you are outside the world, as if you are outside reality. Like the documentary is supposed to be a reality which is the absolute truth, and you are not part of that reality, so you can't be doubted, which I find strange because everything we know about reality is suspect because we are a part of it. So I think, like, also my 20s living in this very eclectic way. Of course, part of living on your own is also about romantic adventures and wanting to do all of those things which you're not allowed to do at home, like have sex and, like get up to no good with many people and all of that. So I think through it all, through my 20s, a lot of these ideas were interacting, these experiences were interacting with the received ideas about politics that I was confronting, of course, in the liberal documentary space, many of which I didn't agree with, but I didn't have the language to disagree with in a way. I didn't understand enough, but in my gut, I felt that this is not right. Like, this is not the only way to talk, to be political and to make a difference in the world, right? That was that. And I tell you the other thing about Bombay, and now I'm going to be a little bit nostalgic, which is that the Bombay that I came to was a different Bombay than now, because it was a pre-liberalization Bombay, which meant that the heart of the city was still working class. You know, there are no multiplexes. It's a different world in that sense. And because I encountered also many different types of political people. So there was liberal elites, but there'll also be people who are in trade unions. And I did go to many like peace morchas and anti-communal morchas and all that. But there I met a very eclectic mix of people from very different backgrounds. And I think that thing of interacting with these numerous political formations, making friends with, you know, my friend Datta Ishwalkar, who was the leader of the mill workers movement and who was a mill worker and the son of a mill worker. Like, who could imagine when I was like going to St. Anne's High School that I would be friends with this person, right? And that I would have a warm and loving relationship with him. Nothing like, it was not because of politics or anything. Just that I liked Datta, Datta liked me. I used to hang around at the union meetings, like on the edge, doing nothing very useful. Sometimes I'd make myself useful by taking some photos or something like that. But basically, I was just a hanger on. I was just going for like, wow, this is so, I love it kind of thing. It helped me to learn about Bombay differently through the eyes of other kinds of people. Subsequently, in PMGP, when many artist types moved out because there was television boom, people began earning money, I continued to live there. But then a new kind of population of people began to come in who were bar dancers. So that was also like a very big learning. You know, suddenly all my neighbors were bar dancers, and all these ideas of respectability that you see in the sexuality discussions amongst middle class young people today. I mean, like, all that got like, it became irrelevant, you know. I mean, so I think, yeah, that was my 20s, like just encountering a very diverse, genuinely cosmopolitan world, not the cosmopolitanism that elites talk about, but really one which is very, see, many of my neighbors were also like Shiv Sena supporters during the 92-93 riots. So it's not like, oh, it was some like mini Nukkad Nehruvian paradise. There was that to be negotiated as well, that there were people who were communal, who are your neighbors. That was also true of mill workers, for instance. So actually, it's like, you have to deal with all this on the ground, and you have to find some way of negotiating and understanding all this. And I think it really, it's a political education of a different kind, I would say. Yeah.
I have a very like a direct arrow type question, which you don't have to answer, but I really wish you do. What was your last heartbreak, and how did you deal with it, like with a person?
My last, so I won't go into details of the heartbreak, but I can tell you it was 3 or 4 years ago. And I dealt with it the way everybody deals with heartbreak, by crying a lot. I cried so much that my cook said to me one day that, Didi, you will become blind. You are always like, you know, in some old Hindi movies, sometimes people become blind because they cried so much. I think I was. No, I mean, you know, I mean, I think like heartbreak is tough. It takes, we did a conversation with Shanta Gokhale and Dolly Thakur some weeks ago. And Dolly said that it took me 7 years to recover from my first heartbreak. And I was like, oh, thank God, you know, because it's really long. And, you know, of course, you know, I tortured my friends. I talked about it continuously. I cried so much that they didn't know what to do. They would feel bad for me. But I'm lucky in that I have friends who, you know, they also bear it. They bear you, the unbearable you, in heartbreak mode. I think, yeah, you also try to be, you know, when you're heartbroken, you have a lot of mental conversations. You have a lot of angry conversations with the person who broke your heart in your head. You compose many letters full of cold rage and analysis, basically denigrating the other person, which you never send. And, you know, bit by bit, you feel less heartbroken. I think you stay heartbroken from all the heartbreaks, honestly, if you ask me. But one heartbreak also slightly replaces the other. So, so So, for example, I have a friend, and the last time that I fell in love, when I was talking to her about the person, she said, Paro, this person is a really good one, because now you start talking about that other guy. Right? I've forgotten about him now. So I think, yeah, that is what it was. But I think, another thing is that at a more serious level, like talking about painful childhood or talking about joys that you have, heartbreak is hard because you're always being told that you should recover the happy memories. And I really admire people who are able to do that. I'm a little bit more cutter, and feel very hurt. When I'm hurt, I feel very hurt, so it becomes difficult for me to have that equanimity which you try to tell other people to have. I think the biggest recovery to make from heartbreak is not necessarily, although it might be, memory of good things that you had and the knowledge that you were loved, even if you have the knowledge that you were hurt. I think the struggle that many of us have is to recover our own selves as being lovable, right? Because one of the things we feel when we're heartbroken is, I cannot be loved.
Yes.
And you count all the unlovable things about yourself, which are genuinely unlovable, of course. I mean, it's not like anybody is fully lovable. So you really focus on all the reasons why it's completely right that something bad has happened to you. And you tell yourself a very doomsday scenario about yourself. So I think the struggle to recover your day-to-day enjoyment, the struggle to recover a time when you're not thinking about yourself as a heartbroken or an abandoned person, that is a very big struggle, and it has to be fought. Like, you have to do it bit by bit, I think. You have to focus on it after giving yourself some amount of time. Like, when the pain is very huge, you do give into it. I remember speaking to a friend of mine about it, and she said, the thing with you is you deal with your pain with anger. Because I get very angry first, and anger gives me a lot of articulation, which helps me. I do write a weekly column, so I also write a lot of jalakata in the column. I'm like, I know you're reading it, okay, read it. But the thing is that, and my friend said that her tendency was to respond to hurt to express hurt or pain more than to express anger. So, I mean, our pain and our anger both need some space. So if we can express both, if we have the friends who will tolerate our lengthy recoveries, then we are pretty lucky. After some time, little decency overtakes you, and you feel you just can't torture your friends anymore. So you try to control yourself. So I think that decency also helps, because you're just like, okay, can I really call up, like in the middle of a pandemic, can I call my friend up and then again cry on her shoulder? She's struggling with so much herself. So that decency after a point. Decency should not be that. In the beginning, you should be indecent, because your friends will bear it. You should know that your friends will bear it. After some time, your decency makes you behave better. As you behave better, you also start experiencing yourself in a slightly stronger way. Yeah. I mean, and I think people should do whatever it takes to feel better. Like, if it means therapy, you should go for therapy. If it means doing some spiritual practice, do it. Like, I feel the aim should be to feel better. The aim should not be to become some new character, because another thing is, whenever I have a heartbreak, I always cry and tell my friends, you don't let me fall in love again. Don't let me do it again. Next time that you see me fall in love, you just stop me, because I can't possibly go through this again. We will stop you. But then at that time, they all like, go ahead. And if something happens, we'll be there and all that. So,
How do you fall in love? As in, do you fall in love
instantaneously?
Instantaneously.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something wrong in that fact. I mean, I'm sure that there are many Instagram posts about how it's a bad thing.
No, yeah, those are politically correct word ko hum aaj ignore karenge. Today is just you, and tell me, how do you fall in love instantaneously? As in,
mostly it's love at first sight. So, I guess you could say good looks play a part in that kind of an interaction. But I think, I mean, I think I'm quite a romantic person. So, yeah, it's just something. Sometimes I mean, the question is not falling in love so much. Now it happens to be very less.
really?
I fall in love very often when I was younger. Now I don't fall in love that often, actually. But and it could be because I'm always working. I don't know. But the thing is that the real thing is, how long can the in love feeling last? Because sometimes it's just like a very passing, and you can give it different name, like it was just a crush or whatever. But the thing is that staying in that romantic feeling for a long time, that's the thing that makes you know that you're feeling in love, right? And I'm going to make that very cliche distinction between loving people and being in love with them, because loving people is a complex enterprise, and it requires you to have quite a few fights, and like there have to be some schisms that you work out and all of that, and you have to see each other in unlovable times and get through those things together, and love really deepens with that. I think different kinds of love, including love between friends. But I think that really enjoying yourself with somebody is for me quite an important part of
Uh,
being in love. Yeah, if I don't really enjoy myself, then I don't really like it.
mm, mm.
Also feeling that the other person is enjoying themselves a lot with me. Like if I feel somebody is not having fun with me, then I feel, okay, what is the point? So yeah.
Did it be too much to ask you if you're dating anybody right now?
I'm not dating anybody right now.
This thing you said about knowing that you're enjoying yourself.
Mm.
I don't know if it's the non-stop presence of all our lives online, or this presence, or this feeling that that we need to be insecure to feel alive. I mean, I'm talking about. So when you know you're enjoying yourself, is it also not sometimes compounded by doubt, by fear, by
Of
this
course.
ridiculous jealousy that so how do you deal with, I mean, are you jealous? I mean, are you a jealous person? How do you deal with jealousy?
I don't think, I mean, from time to time, I can feel extreme jealousy in all departments of life. But the thing is that I do think enjoyment's quite important thing, because enjoyment is also flow, right? Like when you're enjoying yourself, you get into a flow. Even when you're working, like when you're feeling very fractious with work, like you're very worried that you won't make the deadline, or what will people think of what I've written. That all those thoughts happen to us when we're doing work, right? But there's a moment when we stop thinking that, and we just start writing or just start editing, and then we get into a flow. Then we're not thinking about anything. We are fully enjoying ourselves. So I remember one time I had a very tight deadline to edit this film, Where's Sandra?
Mm.
And it had to be shown, and we were editing it, finishing it the previous night from the screening. And maybe at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., like very late, like 4 a.m. maybe, we finished the edit. Then we watched the edit. And then I was like, it's good that that one piece of music is not very perfect, but I guess we can live with it. So then my editor said, no, let's look for another piece of music. So then that whole enterprise of looking for a piece of music, it was 7 by the time we finished, 7 a.m. And the screening of the film was in the like 4 o'clock or something. And then my colleague turned to me and said, we must really like what we do, because why have we done this to ourselves? Like we started doing this thing. And it's true. I mean, you're feeling tired and you're feeling fed up, but you're also enjoying yourself, right? So I
Yes.
think that so at the same time, like say, I'm going to use the analogy of making a film. When you're finishing the film, it's the worst, because 1 minute you think, wow, the film has come, is really nice. This film is wonderful. And the next minute is like, this film is really crap. And people are just going to like say this, that, and the other, and shit all over the film, and say bad things about me. So that is there side by side. And I mean, I have a lot of self-doubt. I'm definitely a person with a lot of self-doubt. So um, I think the more you can, like, I think it is hard in the world today to count on the pleasure. I think I found it so much easier before. And now sometimes when you're just counting on the pleasure and saying the pleasure is there, it's so much fun. So it's great. I love it. You immediately start doubting yourself and saying, oh, you're just convincing yourself of that. You're actually a loser who's telling yourself that this is fine, because actually you can't have X, Y, or Z things, right? So that does happen. But, I mean, these are all stories we tell ourselves, as everybody's therapist will tell them. Uh, Recently, I spoke to, and they are in a way, right? And recently, I met a friend who was talking about how she had been in some complex therapeutic process, and they had developed this narrative about why certain things happened to her, and what she's getting out of the difficult things that happened to her.
Mm.
Like that difficult, the ego might seek a reward out of some difficulties that it seeks, kind of thing, right? Which is not considered to be healthy. But then I was asking her that, don't you feel better after this process when you've thought about it, that, oh, I did it for a reason, and it may be a fake happiness that I got out of feeling X or Y in the difficult situation, but at least I had some story. I was not just a passive creature to whom horrible things were happening. but I am part and parcel of the story that is happening to me, and I'm also making that story happen. So I think it's quite helpful. Maybe it's instrumentally helpful for some people in that they stop doing those things, and then I don't know if they get their magically happy lives because they worked out and look good and stop doing toxic behavior or whatever. Maybe it does. Maybe mostly if you can just like make yourself the protagonist of your own stories.
How yeah.
It's just a bit easier because that's all you're doing. You are a flawed being. We are imperfect people, and our imperfections create beauty and they create pain, both the things for us, right? So I think like once a lot of art and a lot of like surrounding ourselves with art and conversations in a way enables that you see yourself as a protagonist in your life, not the hero, which is how people tell you, right? Online, imagine you are the hero of your life. Now, I don't know about heroic, but you are the protagonist. You are the story of your life. You are making that story along with other
What is
people.
the difference for you?
I mean, it's not a triumphalist story, right? It's not about triumph. It's not about being right or being wrong. It's just who you are. Like, that is who you are. And that is a life that you'll make. Some part of it will be like crap, which you have only created. Or as my friend says to me on the phone, मैंने भी गंद मचा दिया. So I think the best thing that can happen to you is to be able to find friends to whom you can admit कि मैंने गंद मचाया. Then I did this thing and this happened, right? So I think that's it. Once you can do that, it's a little bit easier to live your life. Life feels a bit more livable.
Do you watch Khichdi, that TV
No,
show?
I don't watch much TV. Like I didn't have a TV for many years, so I don't have a habit of TV.
There's this character called Prof who keeps saying, Babuji, main kya hai? Main. So, meaning if there is, meaning like you told me to bring a cow and I got the next thing best to it. You wanted milk. So, main kya hai? Main. Milk, no, like that. So, is your thing about the protagonist in your own life similar to what is the main thing right now? Not that you win or you lose, but you're the protagonist. Is it like that?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't know the answer to that question, to be perfectly honest. Like, I think a very main thing for me, and maybe 5 years from now, I'll not say this, I really don't know. But I think a very main thing for me is to be able to be true to whatever I think I am, right? And that thing can change, of course. But I do find that if I am putting myself in situations in which I am becoming false, it leads to quite a lot of unhappiness for me. So struggling to find, am I being truthful to myself or am I being true to what I like to be? It sort of centers me a lot. And then things start to fall into balance for me, So then even if I feel a sense of, what can I say, like say resentment about something, or sometimes feeling like, oh, I don't get as much importance as I would like to have or as I deserve. Not that anybody deserves anything or whatever. It becomes a little bit more manageable because if I mean, I say this to myself a lot and I say this to other people a lot. If I just think about the fact that I am over 50 and I do the things that I do and get to live the life that I get to live, it's not always easy, let me say. I mean, I don't like to talk about difficulty when there is also so much non-difficulty, right? Like if there was only difficulty, I would talk about it. And I did. When I felt that there was only difficulty for me, I spoke about it a lot. But when there's also so much else that you have been able to make for yourself along with others, because you don't make it alone, you make it by being bloody lucky that you followed your own desires and you ran into other people who follow their own desires, and then somehow together you ended up doing things, right? So I always think it's like, when people tell you that, oh, so and so got banished into the forest, in the old stories, then he was banished to the forest. Something like all the people who are banished into the forest, once they have time, forest. It's a little bit like that, right? That you actually, whatever you're doing, you are doing with a group of people. When you make a film, and there are other people who work with you for not that much money, and they put in so much heart and soul of theirs into the film, it's not because you are some great auteur. You mean maybe because they like you and they like your work and all of that. It's also their own set of commitments, right? That all those energies are coming together and we are doing this thing together. So it's also their beliefs that are making their energies that are bringing this thing together. So I think that if I think of all the things I've gotten to do and that I'm kind of not only surviving but thriving, this is incredibly lucky. And it's proof that you don't have to stick to the straight and narrow, right? That you can actually, from the bent path, reach your own garden of pleasure, right? So I think that this is the only thing I can say, that every time I remind myself that I actually managed to do the things that I wanted to do. Everybody said you can't, and everybody continues to say you can't. And it's not that I'm setting out to prove anybody wrong, but I really want to do those things. I can't be different than how I am. And I'd be more miserable fitting in and supposedly getting some rewards. And I'm unable to do it, to be very honest. It's my inability, and that reduces my wealth, success, many other things that I would like to have in life, actually. But it's okay. It's pretty good that you can do the things you want to do, that you can make things that make people happy, which is very important to me. That other people, if I think about Agents of Ishq, and that, Agents of Ishq on its own, without us ever telling anybody what our sensibility is, people just knew it. And people for 7 years have been contributing to that site and making the site what it is in a way. We are also changing. They are changing with us. We are changing with them. We are doing this together. I've never even met most of the people who write on the site, but their incredible stories and their creativity and honesty are shaping this thing together, right? So I just think like it's an amazing chance to get to be in this in a way. So I think that, yeah, it is easy to doubt what you do, and feel that you're just giving yourself tasalli. Yeah, oh, it's so nice, I do what I love and blah blah blah. But it's not actually tasalli. It is that is what I like and love, and that is to be reminded. Like, I have to remind myself again. It's like a reset button, basically.
I'm very glad this is up on YouTube and I can watch it whenever I want.
I don't think I'll be glad. Probably people are going to be like, for a lot of gas, but anyway. I'll say she asked me, so I answered.
No, but see, the thing, that one word I want to go back to is when you said people run into each other. The word that you used was run into each other when they're chasing desires.
When they're following their own desires, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is a very interesting choice of words. And that's also something that we choose to neglect so often in our lives. And when I say we, I mean I. But yeah, it feels good to be reminded that you literally are running into people like this everywhere. But
Yeah.
And there are yes,
Also,
please. That you, at least I choose to focus more on the bystanders who are standing around and saying, you could have done that better. Why didn't you do this? And why is there so much chaos? And in even running a simple event, that there'll be people to tell you how to do it. That there'll be people standing and saying, this is not right, that is not right, that shouldn't have happened, etc., etc. But what is said is that if there is at least one other person or two sets of people that who are doing this for the same reason that you are, which is ultimately you're chasing something and you're just chasing it mindless of who's chasing it with you.
Yeah.
It's all worth it.
Yeah. I think as you get certain things, you do, of course, become anxious about losing them. Like, when you have nothing to lose, then you're like you're much more bold when you have less. That's a fact. And then you do become cautious and anxious when you have something to lose, right? But I think it's okay. You have to just remind yourself that
when you have so much to lose, I'm guessing that you do, because
when you have something to lose, like if you get a measure of success in life, right? Then
how do you measure it? In your position right now, do you have a lot to lose? And when you do realize that, what do you do?
I don't know. Like, I think that the feeling that you have a lot to lose is only a feeling, it may not be a real thing. That's what I'm trying to say. When you don't have anything, then you're like, I have nothing to lose. So you're like doing whatever you're doing. But when you start to feel like you have something, like say if people pay regard, if people hold your work in regard, then you start to worry that if you do something that is different from what you've usually done, then you will lose that. Those people, right? But I think that is something to get over. Like, you can feel it, you can have phases also. That is also why I'm quite a fan of doing a lot of work, because when you're regularly working, right, like then you can force yourself to say, I'm going to take the risk of not doing what I've been doing for the last so many years and do something different right now. And you'll find that actually people do like it. It's not that they don't. So that fear is your own fear. And I do think that, you know, people like to discover other people. So like I'm one of those people who is permanently in discovery mode. Like I'm always being discovered by somebody because I'm not that famous or that important. So somebody will be like, it's such a pity that more people don't know Paromita's work.
What, really?
Such a pity that, you know, she doesn't get more something or the other. And I'm like, it really is a pity, guys, do it for me. But the thing is that you can't fall victim to that, right? That now that this person has discovered me, this person has picked me, I'm going to continuously try to please them and be what they want me to be. I think that social media really encourages that way of thinking. But it's not only social media, right? If you make a film and it wins a lot of awards, you'll feel like making a film like that. When I made Unlimited Girls, that film was so popular that, you know, to make a film like Q2P after that, which was so different from Unlimited Girls, was a little bit scary also. But, and some people did say, I'm really disappointed, you know, it's not like Unlimited Girls. That's okay. I mean, what to do, you know? So, yeah.
When and I'm going to, of course, bring up Shah Rukh Khan, because how can we not bring up Shah Rukh Khan? And this because if there are people here who, and by the way, I should give a call out to all my volunteers and office bearers who've been running festivals nonstop. Many of them are graduating this year. So many of the questions that I'm asking you are hitting them right at the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Not my questions, but your answers are hitting them right at the heart. And I know this because since they're graduating, they're moving to a new place, new world, they don't know what it's like, etc., etc. I'm going to bring up Shah Rukh Khan here because until I read what you'd written about him, I didn't know that it was possible to love an actor in a way that made it seem so true and honest and touchable, you know, because everyone would dismiss this idea in my family about falling in love with an actor. My mother once found a whole cover of actors and actresses' pictures in my bag, which I'd cut out from Stardust magazine and Filmfare magazine. And she made me put them into the fire that she lit only for that. She's crazy about fire. She burns my journals, she burns my film stars, everything. But no, journals I started burning because she discovered them and she'd say, who's this boy you're saying hi to? Who's this girl you're crazy about, etc. But yeah. So I always thought you had to feel guilty to be able to like a popular actor like that. Like it's not even some non-mainstream actor that you like so much. It's a very mainstream actor. But you gave me a language in which to love Shah Rukh Khan, which is that you be honest about why you like him, Vijay. You like him because, as Paromita Vohra pointed out, he kisses women on the necks. And that's not something you can ignore. That's not something anyone in the world should ignore. And I thought, yes, this is exactly why I like him, because she has pointed it out. But you know what I'm more interested in? It's not that he kisses women on the necks. It's that you have noticed it and you have written about it and talked about it. And now it's real.
Yeah.
Let me tell you that it wasn't real actually until you pointed it out. It became real for many young women after you pointed out that his signature move is that he kisses women on the necks. So how do you arrive and this is a writing question also, and also a question about truth telling, which is whatever. And I'm not adding a lot of pressure on truth. I'm very interested in how you're able to transfer something that gives you joy when you're watching something on screen and not allowing any dirt of the world to interfere with it, but just saying, listen, this thing, there is something in it. Let's look at it for a while, which is what you did. And what I want to know is, what was that process like and how did you arrive at it?
I mean, it's just hard to remember. I can't remember when I first started writing about Shah Rukh Khan. Like, I don't have a memory of actually writing about Shah Rukh Khan per se. But of course, I wrote that erotic story, which was really disguised Shah Rukh Khan's erotic story, right? But I think I fell in love with Shah Rukh Khan at first sight. Like, came on 4G. I saw it on TV. Finish. I loved him forever. And then, my friends Hansa and Anjali and I, we went to see um, Kabhi Haan Kabhi Na in Picky Cinema near where we stayed. And I was like so pissed off with Sadia Siddiqui. I'm like, she's continuously hugging him as Behan ke role mein and all that. Just imagine, guys. So I think that there were two things. I mean, I love Dar. No matter what anybody says, I'll continue to love Dar. I love that movie. So I think that, like, when you're watching this thing and it fills you with such a strong force of feeling, how can you ignore that? Like, what kind of self-hating nitwit do you have to be to ignore something that fills you with feeling, right?
Yes.
And I think that maybe it's because I'm Punjabi. Maybe because, like, anyway, I was such a loser character that I had nothing to lose, so I could say whatever I felt. Maybe it was that. I really don't know. But I think that, again, I had a lot of friends to whom I could talk about things, right? Like, I definitely have gone through many years of being looked down on for liking Shah Rukh. Not looked down on, but like,
no, we've never talked about this. How much hate do you get for loving Shah Rukh, man?
Yeah, so people are like, oh, he can't act not. But I used to just see, the thing is, I feel that loving Shah Rukh Khan was in itself a whole thing, but it was also part and parcel of loving many movie actors, right? Like, my first crush was Rishi Kapoor. Then I also loved Rahman, the actor, which most people who are on this call will not know who he was, but he was in these Gurudat movies and he was often a villain and he was like very suave and good looking man. So then I would periodically have a lot of movie crushes, and I would also have a lot of crushes on people around me. I was continuously in crush with somebody or the other. So I think I was quite propelled in life by this kind of falling in love type of feeling frequently, right? And I took it extremely seriously because I was a very serious young person. So maybe that was my undoing, but I never didn't take romance and love. I mean, I never took it non-seriously, right? I always was very stricken. I was always very tragic, and I was always very intense about it all. When I was happy, I was very extra happy and extra voluble in that whole thing. But I think the thing with loving Shah Rukh Khan and also everything else, right? Like, working in documentary at that time and being told what feminism is by some people, but not finding your own experiences represented in the thing which is being called feminist. So to give you an example, I went to an art exhibition, a photo exhibition of women of India from a certain time to a certain time, which was supposed to be full of emblematic images of women who have stood for feminist ideas, and of course all those women did stand for feminist ideas. But I was looking at it and I'm thinking, I think, like, people in my family, like my grandmother, who was an actress, and my grandparents got divorced, and my grandmother had continuously fluctuating fortunes, but she was extremely beautiful and also had all these gorgeous saris, and like, she was something amazing, but not fitting into any register of success, right? But what about people like her? Like, why aren't they there? I have grown up seeing lots of pretty crazy ladies in my lifetime who are not perfect icons of old-fashioned feminism, but who are very propulsive. Like, this propulsiveness, I think, is the most important thing about life, right? Like, like, you all are English literature students, so you know this term quicken, like the feeling of the quickening of the pulse. And I don't know if my friend Anjali Punjabi is still on the call or not, because I saw her coming in at one point.
She's here. I can see her.
She's here. So she made a film on Mirabai. And at that time, reading about Mirabai and actually, after seeing the footage that they shot, I worked on that film, and when they shot the footage and came back and I saw it, I suddenly understood Mirabai's metaphors differently. Because if you're writing in the desert and then you say that it's like a shoot, I feel love like a shoot. It sounds very ordinary to somebody who lives in Bombay, where shoots are always shooting because of the moist weather, right? It's suddenly in the desert, when there is a shoot, oh my God, it's a huge thing, right? That is very propulsive. Like, it is a quickening of the blood and the quickening of life that makes you want to move forward. So I think that you should never ignore the thing that quickens your blood. And recently I asked my colleague about some piece of work, that did you like it? And the conversation I had was very familiar one. I've had that conversation with many people over time. Yeah, it's good. No, it's very good. I mean, maybe I should not have read it in one go. Maybe I should have done it in parts. So my question is, if you found the work boring, why are you doubting your boredom? If you didn't like it, you didn't like it. But the fact that we are not allowed to say, we are told that some things are canonically to be liked and some things are canonically not to be liked. And we are told to feel that way by the very Bhadraloks who tell us that canons are to be doubted. But then canons are constantly being created in everyday behavior, right? So I would say that our instincts, our pleasures are our biggest guide, and they are our biggest political guide. So loving Shah Rukh Khan is, of course, just about loving Shah Rukh Khan, but it's an entire political idea, right? Of being not quite like other people, of Shah Rukh himself representing a character. All that I wrote about Shah Rukh in that long piece in the Indian Express and all, it's a little bit retrospective understanding of liking him. But at that time, what you're responding to is so many different things which are very sensory, right? About of goofiness, of humor, of sweetness, of willing to be vulnerable, of willing to be totally badly behaved, all of those things. I mean, see, Shah Rukh will play a stalker in Dar, but there's no confusion that is not considered to be a good thing. He is suffering for his own behavior, right? He is punished for that behavior. So I'm saying that, like, if you understand that character that he's playing, and you also know how much bad behavior you've done in your own life, suddenly here is this beautiful person embodying your bad behavior, embodying your own stalking behavior, embodying everything, right? So I just think that somehow the loving of Shah Rukh and the articulation of loving of Shah Rukh came hand in hand with also questioning the kind of idea of liberal politics, which is supposed to be free of pleasure, which is not supposed to be joyful, where we are not supposed to talk about the emotions, where we are not supposed to think about the world in a poetic way, but always in a prosaic fashion, and always in the register of realism, right? People saying that realism is equal to truth are basically saying that all the feelings that are inside us, which are intangibles, which can only be represented through non-realistic work, are not important. That means everything that you feel inside you is not important. Only your outside is important. This is a very deterministic way of looking at the world. It's basically telling you that then you are locked into your identity forever. You are locked into whatever you are forever because that's real, right? And that you can only change it in very small ways. But the imperfect changes of something like glamour or beauty or sex or desire or poetry are propulsive. They shift the whole thing. And when you say this thing, that there's a rendering into reality, the feeling of the dream, right? That, oh, nobody was willing to say that I love Shah Rukh publicly. But I was willing to say it not only because I loved him or because I'm bold or something, which I'm not at all, but because I had some friends with whom I could share this articulation because I was not alone in feeling it. Because I could observe that it's a certain kind of person who loves Shah Rukh, right? And slowly through those observations and those conversations with people who love Shah Rukh, I began to determine some kind of articulation for it, right? And I think that brings us to an entire politics of saying that what we feel we will trust, and then we will verify that feeling. It's not that I feel it so therefore it's real, which is what social media is like. I felt bad so therefore badness is reality. I felt good so therefore goodness is reality, right? It's not about that. It's just about, I feel something, I'm going to follow that feeling, and I'm going to find the evidence that tells me what I feel makes sense. That is rigor, right? That is the rigor of art. Art requires. And so I'm saying that another reason why I could write about Shah Rukh Khan was because I think I was wanting to be a good writer. And being a good writer was to be able to render into words the thing that I'm feeling. It's that simple, right? Yeah.
Yes. 100 times, yes. You.
I'm being very scared that I'm boring everybody by talking so much.
Not at all. It's, that dill I was talking about, I'm sure it's my dill only because all of this is just hitting. I'm using a kajal to write everything you're saying because I couldn't find a pen. I'm afraid that if I lose,
That's very romantic.
lose the words, I don't know, I want to feel this full all my life. This is beautiful. I want to ask the students and the other listeners here, if you have a question for Paromita Vohra, please put it on the chat box. Meanwhile, I'm going to continue my conversation with her. Let me see if there are questions. Okay, if you have questions, please put it down. I have one last question for you.
Somebody is dying of happiness. I'm so happy. That's the only way to die, right? What a way to go.
Let's be true to the panel that we're doing, because I'm being fully true for my love for you. Let's look at the chat box.
Well, I'm very happy to see that Matangi is saying that their intentional activity for the week will be to machao some gand. That I owe to my friend Hansa, who's like, meant the full gand machadi. Also, while we are waiting for questions, I'll tell you a really funny story about my friend Hansa.
Yes.
And that we had this really ridiculous role play. So we would call each other up, like when we finally got telephones and all, we would spend a lot of time talking on the phone. I mean, the phone is obviously a very important part of human life and freedom, right? And we would gossip, of course. And then very often while we were gossiping or saying some bitchly analytical things about other people, the phone call used to get cut. So we developed this joke about how there is a cosmic operator who every time he sees that we are machawing gun in the conversation, and that cosmic operator seems to still be in our lives, unfortunately. But anyway, then sometimes I would ring up with excitement. And I'm also, I feel that I am a gossip magnet. I don't go searching for gossip, but I come to know information about things which are very very easily. Like, I mean, I won't go into the stories about the gossip things that have come to me without my asking. Then I would call up and say, guess what? And then I would tell her something, and then we would discuss this whole thing. So we sometimes would joke that, we're like Nita's Natter, Stardust magazines. That's the other thing. Like when you ask me what made me grow up with me, Stardust. I owe everything to Stardust. Stardust like very ardently, and these are a few of my favorite things. And all
yes, I love that.
Oh
yes.
Good, right. And the thing is that whole story of Kabir Bedi writing Parveen Babi, and we all remember it. And I think another thing that we all remember, like people of my age, all remember two things. One is the post-coital cigarette in Diwar, because we were all very small and we saw it, but we knew that this is something ye cheez hai kuch. And we've discussed it later on. We also all remember the extremely sensual tragedy of O Saathi Re in Muqaddar Ka Sikandar, and how that song, even though we were some 8 or 9 years old, like drenched us in sensuality of tragedy. So I'm sure these are all very bad things, like this Devdasi in us came from all these movies, right? And
sensuality of tragedy is, we should talk about this. Yes.
Like that sensuality of pain, that, oh my God, love, and I can't have it. And so the different ways in which, of course, like it's all there, in Indian writing, like this whole viraha, and you're enjoying your viraha. I mean, you're writing so many poems about viraha, so you must be getting something out of it, not only pain, right? So I think that idea of, anyway, so these are things we remember, but we would always also remember, like, say, we heard a song on Doordarshan. Everybody heard it on the same day. People who have never met each other, but will later on in life become friends. And then we'll be like, once I heard a song, and you'll be like, I've also heard it. I've also been looking for that song forever. So I think some of the scarcity of our times, like in pre-liberalization, have also really bonded us, and our urgency to find that song somehow. Or if a song was going to come on the radio, our urgency to write down the lyrics, because we would not be able to easily get that song again. I think this also created an extra tendency to be in love, because you had to love everything with equal ardor, right? From a song to a dress to everything was a little bit harder to get. So you loved it more intensely in a way. And when you got it, you enjoyed it very sensually also. So yeah, well, I was saying all this while waiting for
Hansa's.
Hansa has come. So Hansa, the thing I want to tell you is that, So Hansa and I, we were talking about, so then there used to also be a column in the newspaper by Nina Pillai. And in that column, she had a photo in which she was wearing some kind of a head harem. I don't know what she was wearing in that photo, but we were very charmed by it. And we also, so there was this whole thing that we used to call each other Shobha and Nina when we spoke to each other on the phone. Like anytime we wanted to gossip, then we would call each other and say, hello, Shobha, hello, Nina. It's kind of doing a lot of faltugiri with your friends is also like the thing that makes life livable, but gives you the courage to feel the things that you feel, basically because you're doing it pleasurably with somebody, and also because you admire your friends, right? You hold your friends in some esteem.
Yes.
So the fact that your friend is liking something that you're liking also gives you self-esteem, because you hold your friend in esteem.
You have like a ton of fans who are saying lovely things for you.
Are they asking questions because I can't see?
Then Egan says, since you spoke about your last heartbreak, do you remember the first time you fell in love? This even I want to know. Listen, we are very curious about your love life.
I know that's because my love life is pathetic, but
no, it's not because it's pathetic. It's because we want to know. I don't know. It's very petty, but we want to know who you are in love with, who you were in love with, what it was like, how did you talk to them. My students and I are always just talking about your love life.
Are you? I think that I have more love life in your students' minds than I have in my own life, actually. My love life is not very interesting. It's like full of romantic tragedies. What do
you like when you're in, what do you like when you're in love?
Quite foolish.
Oh.
Quite foolish.
Best only. Okay, best.
Yeah, quite foolish. Also quite defensive. Quite fearful of getting hurt. All of those things are operating simultaneously, right? Quite fearful of being drowned by the thing that is drowning you.
Drowned by the thing that is drowning you.
Yeah, because you do feel like, I think that you, like for me, I hold on to many things about myself a lot. And, you feel fearful that you won't be able to keep having the life that you have, which you have constructed for yourself, if you fall too much in love and give in too much to love. So I don't think I'm that way, that I'm not a sacrificing kind of character at all. So there's that, yeah.
What was your first time in love?
I don't remember. Like, what counts as first time in love? Like, first time you fell in love, or the first time that it was.
I remember that. Okay, I remember this.
First time I fell in love, I think I was like 8 or something like that.
8 years old.
And I was in love with one boy in the bus. And he used to wear red socks while playing cricket in the playground near my house. Red socks. That, usual foolish thing of taking walks with your friends and cartooing chakkar and just looking and all that kind of thing. That's the first I remember. Quite ordinary.
Anush is saying, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you say, am I being faithful to what I like to be? Yeah, I mean, how do you remember yourself in moments when you want to give yourself to other things or other people?
Well, I don't think it's a method. Like what happens is that every now and then you do go down, you start chasing after the wrong path, right? Like you think you want something. You think you want to earn a lot of money, or you think you want to be important in certain ways. And then you might do certain things, and there's certain reward in doing those things. So for some time you feel like, yeah, this is really cool. But actually you're not really like that. And you start not liking it. And you also start you don't succeed at it beyond a point, because that's not really what you're good at. So I think for me, a lot of it is like, it's just, I reach a point of great misery. I know I'm doing something I don't like. And I have quite a capacity to stay miserable for long. So sometimes I do it for a long time. But I think it's less than other people's. It's less than other people's. Yeah.
But that's such a great thing that is, wait, let's go back. Sorry, people. Wait, we have to do this one at a time. You said, I take such great joy. Wait, you said it's nice to be miserable for a long time. You take such great.
No, I have a capacity. I
do have the capacity to be miserable.
Yeah, because
yes. What do you do with that?
So I think my capacity to be miserable is probably less than other people's, because I experience my misery at a high level, and I complain and bitch and moan about it a lot. Whereas I think other people mostly suffer silently and expect to suffer from life. I complain a lot, but I don't actually expect to suffer and feel like, why am I suffering? And it should not happen that I should suffer. So that, so for example, sometimes if I'm having a lot of fights with a friend, it become unbearable, because I'll continue discussing it. But then he said this, why did he say that? And how dare he say that? And I'll be continuously discussing it. And then my friends will be like, just stop being friends with this person. But I'll not stop also. And it's not because I like to be miserable, but because sometimes that thing, there's some riddle in that experience, which perhaps I'm trying to understand. So sometimes I may stay miserable in a situation because I'm trying to understand why I'm miserable. And there's often a learning about the self, but that understanding, but it does come with a breaking point. Obviously, if you continue staying in misery, you will muddle your own brain. If you're miserable, you become more full of self-doubt, you become more full of self-hate and confusion, obviously. And you stop being able to take a call on what is working for you. I'm talking about myself. I can't speak for others. And I think that sometimes those confusions are confusions born out of choosing a life in which you want to take everything seriously. You know,
Yeah.
I find it difficult to say that that's not important or so and so doesn't matter. Maybe one needs to learn to do that. I don't know. But I think that what often happens is that sometimes when I've had a schism with somebody or had a fight with somebody, um, it's often when the fight happens, I feel that feeling that no, this, I am like this. That person is getting upset with me, not about something that I can change. So there's nothing to be done about this, you know, that kind of feeling. And there's, of course, sadness if you lose a friend or you lose something you're doing or you lose an opportunity or whatever. But I think that you also then understand what you are when you do that. But these are all positive things you're telling me. I'm just saying that in the misery and in chasing the wrong thing, it can be pretty toxic and you can stay in the toxic soup for quite long and it can have a very lengthy impact on your life. So I admire people who are really good at setting boundaries and deciding very early on in something. Whereas like, this is not for me, you know, I admire people who can do that. Whereas I take quite some time to understand some things are not for me or this should not have happened. Because of my self-doubt, I also sometimes want to understand if I have done something to cause my own misery. You could say that's a control freak thing. You want to believe that you can solve your own misery because only you are responsible for your misery. So yeah, I guess you read the book and you come to know at the end that the book was not for you, and it's a little bit like that with other things. I never leave a book halfway. This is an
Yes.
example.
Yeah. Yes, you have to. Same.
Yeah. Like I've just started watching a really horrible show on Netflix called Lincoln Lawyer. And it is,
I was going to watch that.
please don't, please, it's
Really?
so obnoxious and it's so irritating, but now I'm unable to leave it. That's why.
Yes, also that.
Yeah. Now till the bitter end. Okay. Now.
Akanksha Arora says, ma'am, when I'm in love, I'm so. Hey, wait, are you here? Have you gone?
Anushka Fadnis is saying, ma'am, when I'm in love, I'm so in love, I can't write only. But after heartbreak, I become Devdas and write some sonnet rubbish. How to write when you're getting love blocked? I can't think of anyone but him already. I cannot answer this question because I become pretty fecund when I'm in love and I do a lot of good work.
Really?
Wrong person to.
Wait, are you a happy person when you're in love or a miserable person?
Both.
Yeah.
In equal extremes.
But you're saying you work a lot when you're in love and also when you're not in love.
I mean, I do now. I feel free and happy, and then I write pretty nice things, I feel. So I'm not the person to solve. But I write, then in heartbreak also, it's in the misery period that I struggle a bit.
Nidhi says, if you find that you've strayed from chasing your desires, how do you return to them and refigure out who you are and who you want to be? Oh my God, Nidhi, this is lovely.
You get one fatka. Basically, that is it. After you chase down things that you don't really want and you keep on and on at it and you don't, cut your losses early enough, which I must admit, I don't cut my losses early enough. I think you get a fatka. Something happens. Like something bad happens to you. When I say something bad, something unpleasant, it becomes unpleasant. You may have a fight or there may be some disaster or something may go wrong, but that's it. And then you hit a little bit of rock bottom and you understand that that was not for you. Yeah. In different measure, like I'm making it sound very disastrous, but what I'm saying is that when you're in situations that you're unhappy in, some people are really good at saying, I'm unhappy, I'm getting out of here. I have a lot of self-doubt, so I'm not easily able to do that. But I think that I'll bring it back to the idea that I don't genuinely like to be miserable. I genuinely like to feel happy and good and, cheerful. So eventually it is a desire to be cheerful again that brings me back to something. It's a desire to be able to like things and to enjoy things. And also, I think for me, a good gauge is that when I'm not feeling happy, I'm not easily able to do nice things for others. And that is a kind of a bum place to be in, right? Like if you can't do a simple small thing that'll make somebody else happy, then how impoverished are you feeling? Or if you want to get a lot of reward for making somebody feel happy, that's also impoverishment. So the easy way in which we do things for each other, when that goes out of my life, it's an indicator to me that I'm doing something that is not okay for me. That may even be overworking. It doesn't necessarily mean some drastic and dramatic situation. Like if you're very overworked, maybe that's not good for you and you need to, like sometimes you're very overworked and you're completely happy.
Yes. And
sometimes you're very overworked and you're extremely unhappy. So when you're extremely unhappy, you've got to address that in some way.
Simran Meher asks, what is your favorite Punjabi or Hindi song right now?
Actually, I must admit that a song I've been listening to on loop is Punjabi, but you can call it Hindi if you like. It's Pasuri. I've been listening to it quite a bit. Actually, the whole of Coke Studio season 14, I've been loving. Yeah. And also, like, I listen to a lot of old Hindi film songs. So one old Hindi film song that I've been listening to quite a bit is, you won't know the song.
No, say it. We'll find the link with people. Office bearers, post it here right now. Say it.
It's from a film called 9-2-11. It's Kya Ho Phir Jo Din. Kya Ho Phir Jo. Do you want to watch it?
Why not? Yes.
Can we watch a song?
Yes.
Never listen to me talk so much.
Play it for us. Drishti, how do we organize?
I'm a co-host. I'm the co-host.
Co-host, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, does everybody want to hear it, or I'm just forcing you to hear?
Yes, please. No. What is a Paromita session without a song? This film is, the title is called They're Playing My Song. We should play your song.
Play a song, yeah. Can you see the screen? See, it's like,
yes, we can see
it's on loop, so you can see that it's there.
I just saw it and it went off.
It went away, na? Where has it gone?
Yeah, I can see it now. Do you want to play it and we can check audio? Yeah, perfect. Yes, thank you.
धड़कन होती
Oh, thank you so much for showing this to us. Who is the is she Shashikala?
Yeah,
She's
Shashika and Helen are the main dancers. There are four
who's
dancers.
the who's the man who springs onto screen and starts dancing? Is he
Oh, I mean, not a famous. I mean, I don't know the person. He's one of the dancers. Yeah.
uh-huh.
But
Sorry,
you
say.
know, as I was watching the song, I was just thinking that, in a sense, many of the things that the joinage of the things we've been talking about was in my mind. That, when people ask a lot of questions about heartbreak, right? And when you're heartbroken, um, that time you're in pain.
Yes.
And you also are asking yourself, many of us are, I am, and I think many are asking oneself the question of, did I imagine? So was it just my imagination that all this was there and this person cared for me and so on and so forth? And then we tell ourselves that, no, you should be realistic. Realism is the only way to get out of this, right? Like, if you see things with a cold eye, you will be able to figure it all out. And at the same time, the fact is that if you think about things, also both the things are real, right? Like, the pain that you're feeling is real, but also the joy and the happiness and the fun and the intimacy was also a real thing. um, what is chasing after those two ideas really giving to you is the thing that I guess we can observe. And it's like Hindi film songs, which also are considered to be the faltu part of the movie, but they're the most enjoyable part of the movie. And actually, if you look at their enjoyment, because I love Hindi film songs and I love watching and I love Chitrahar, that actually the love of Hindi film songs opened up my mind to so many of the ideas that have informed my feminism, informed my writing, informed my thinking about art, right? But I loved it so much. And now when I look at it, I think, like, yeah, there's a reason I love it so much, because look at the work, look at how beautifully it's made, how it tells you a truth about life. There's beauty, there's glamour, there's so many things in it. So I think, similarly, the idea of always speaking from a place of pain and being locked into a very deterministic story versus also thinking about pleasure, the pleasure which other people may have denigrated, but you have felt it, and following that pleasure, it's perhaps a possibility for making a life something like one that you enjoy. It may not be the life you dreamed of or imagined or whatever, I don't know, but it will be a life that you will somewhat at least feel at home in, right? Eventually, that is the thing. Like, you're looking to make a space that you feel at home in. And I think that that's the political importance of pleasure, is that something is possible for me, sense of possibility. We are rewarded a lot, as you said earlier, Vijay, for telling stories of pain, because then you stay locked in that place. But if we think about heartbreak also as something we move away from eventually, right? It stays inside us forever. Like, every pain and every hurt will stay inside us forever. But that's not all that we are. We are capable of being more than the person who was hurt. We are capable also of being the person who can become happy, because we are capable of falling in love again. It's not just the good luck of falling in love again, but our capacity to do that in ourselves, our capacity to make something new, our capacity to make friendship. That's why friendship is so meaningful, because it gives us a sense of our capacities and a very free way to admire and love others and enjoy ourselves with others, so that it's not only about you. Suddenly, in friendship, it takes away the pressure of everything being about you, right? So I do think that, yeah, in terms of feminism, in terms of art, and in terms of Shah Rukh Khan and politics and all of these things, there is this thing that it's not that pain is irrelevant, because everything that we are feeling in pain is also real, and there's an understanding, and we do move forward with every hurt. Of course we do, and we learn something new, but we also learn something old about ourselves, like what it is we are capable of doing. So yeah, just the song always sort of joins all the ideas, right?
Yes, yes. I'm very stunned by the things you said. I don't think. No, but yeah.
Yasmin. Oh, Yasmin. Hello, Yasmin, who has
Yes.
written a brilliant article on love, sex, and
Oh yeah, yes, that's her. Uh, she's saying, "Good evening. Absolutely lovely to hear you. Really delightful. I wanted to ask, what do you do when you're exhausted with love? How do you write? And does that exhaustion contaminate the other things that you like and turn them sour?"
I think when you're exhausted, yeah, you do enjoy things a little bit less than you should. Where writing is concerned, I mean, I mean, I write a weekly column. I don't have the luxury of liking to write or not liking to write. I have to write that weekly column. I like the discipline of that. I like the humility it brings. That this whole idea, I'm feeling it, and then I will make this piece of art and all. I'm not a very huge fan of that. I'm quite, Protestant in my work ethic, and I believe in working hard. And anybody who's worked with me knows it is torture because of that belief in working hard, being hard on myself, expecting everything to be at a high standard. I think it's good to think about writing as a skill.
Yes.
It's good to think about work as something you have to show up for. You have to get it done to the best of your ability. Some days your best won't be a gorgeous. Some days it will be good. I think it's possible to do good work at a consistent level if you are committed to that idea of skill. I think artisans, you see so much artisanal work in the world, and it's so fantastic. I mean, look at the kind of embroidery that people do traditionally. Look at the kind of pattachitra. Look at all the artisanal work that is there in our country. I mean, people are doing it, right? They just do it. So I think like this artist, I am the artist, and like somewhere from behind my navel, everything will emerge in a pure form. Is also nice thought. It does sometimes, I guess. But I think it's good to think of oneself as artisanal, having a skill and having an ability, and counting on that ability on the days when everything else is feeling hard. You may not, yeah, I think it's hard to enjoy things when you're exhausted because you're tense, you're stressed, you can't be relaxed and watch watch a film, like flow into it easily. But it's okay. Some days you'll not be tired.
Aditi says, Asta is asking a question on YouTube. Paro G, how do you think art and beauty converse with your daily life?
Converse. I mean, everyday life is full of art and beauty only. I mean, uh, I think like I didn't know how to cook when I began to stay on my own, but I did learn to cook, and I think cooking is beauty. The person who cooks for me on a daily basis, like she is such an amazing cook, and she is such a proper cook. She never takes any shortcuts, unlike me, and I'm full of admiration for her skill in cooking. If I tell her a really complicated recipe, she understands it in one go, even if it's something she has never eaten before. This is like a remarkable ability in that person, right? It's a matter of their class and where they were born, that they are not some famous chef. Actually, I would say they could become, but I think that beauty is there in everyday life. It really keeps me going. uh, like the flowers that come in your windowsill, making my house beautiful. Like maybe you don't spend a lot of money on your clothes, but liking what you wear. I love earrings. you know uh, I love admiring also other people's stuff on Instagram, their clothes, whatever. I think it really keeps you going. It makes you so happy. I went to my first like feminist gathering for some work purposes a couple of weeks ago, and the first thing I thought was like, it's so nice to check out everybody's clothes. It's so simple. It is so simple. It is so easy. It is so relaxing, and it makes you, again, I think fills us with a sense of possibility. It does for me.
Simran says, asks, does music become a big part of you when you're in love or getting heartbroken? I'm disgustingly listening to Dil Tuta types Punjabi. Okay, it's a comment. How do you work when in love? Says SDC. Oh my God.
You have to work. There's no like way out.
No way out. You have to work when
You
in
have to
love.
work. Work has to happen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We have lots of comments. Lots of people saying, yes, play that song, please, that song, please.
If you could go to dinner with Shahrukh, what would be the first question you would ask him? I don't know. Like, what should I order for you?
Professor Mini says, I guess the desire to be cheerful is what makes me bounce back from every heartbreaking situation in life. The energy in this rendezvous between Paromita and Vijay is so infectious. Thank you both for this. I love Hindi movies and songs too. Our capacities to make life pleasurable and meaningful is something I resonate with. Oh, wow.
Thank you.
I know I'm going to go to bed a very happy woman tonight because this has happened. And like I've said, like I began the discussion by saying, you are the film that I want to carry into my life. I see this happening. I don't know what to say now, Paru, because I don't think I'm ever exhausted by how much I I I have for you in terms of gratitude, in terms of love, because the work you're doing for people to remember pleasures and joy in their lives is not something that should be taken for granted, because not many of them are doing it. And a lot of the times I find that I need to constantly remind myself and those who come and speak to me that it's important to remember this side of life as well. So this is just a small way of saying thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for who you are, because it would be a very dreary life without imagining what Bombay Ruzi, Parodevi, and Paromita Vohra are doing in Bombay at this given time, at their home or at the workplace, or just walking the streets of Bombay doing what they love doing. I want to close by saying, because I've a lot of the young women here and me, who's not young but whatever, are feeling very directionless, I think, at this point, because we are just doing things that we think we should be doing half the time. And having someone like you, even though she's sitting so far away, is like a map of sorts to trust our guts. No one has given us training in how to trust our guts or to trust what we think we should be doing. So simply by doing the work that you're doing, which is writing and just being yourself, is giving us the kicks in our bums and the dills in our brains to continue what we are doing. So thank you for that. And thank you for making Meta 2022 a very, 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 very special year. I still like to believe that if I ever come to Bombay, I came to Bombay in 2018, I think. And just the thought of imagining that I'm walking the same street as maybe Paromita Vohra would have done. My body with so much chill that I could continue it. So thank you for everything that you do. And we're just gathered here to celebrate what you do. That's actually what we're just doing. We want to celebrate you because I think you're splendid, and I think you're kick-ass, you're sexy in what you do. You give women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s a route to living, which is not there anywhere. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say one thing, because I'm so talkative, that the first time that I came to St. Joseph's, and I was walking down the road and somebody asked me, "Excuse me, ma'am, are you Paromita Vohra?" And then I said, "Yes." And then they became very excited, like I was Elvis Presley or something. Wow, this is so cool. Like, these people are treating me like I'm Shah Rukh Khan. And I'm thinking about other times when I have had that experience, right? Like when you go to the documentary festival in Kathmandu, which is only documentaries and only South Asian. So then everybody treats you like a tiny celebrity, a mini Shah Rukh,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm so grateful that there are people in the world who make those spaces. Right? Like, I think that's on you, Vijay, the kind of classroom you've made, the kind of conversations you're willing to have. We see it from the way that your students write. When your students send in their stories, the capacity for telling a story with a certain, like all of you in balance, which is present. So that's why I'm like, oh, how can I be in Vijay's class so I can also write like this? I think it is so amazing. And I think an example of that is for us when we go into those spaces, and I know that I have other colleagues who feel this way, that we're in that space and we feel the sincerity in the way students ask us questions. I remember that one time when I was there, 3 students came to interview me for some college magazine or something or the other. And one boy just faltu mein added on himself to the group. And then he said, "I have a question for you." And I was like, "Yes, what is your question?" And he said, "Can I have your phone number?" Well, then, okay. But I think it's so amazing to be able to create that space, right? Like where innocence is there alongside this certain kind of knowingness and sophistication, but that sophistication never comes at the cost of innocence. That is a beautiful thing. So thank you. I mean, thank you for creating those spaces, and I hope that we can all, just like a Hindi film song, "Dil se mila ke dil, pyar kijiye," that we can join all our spaces together and make that a bigger space to live in, because I mean, I echo the feeling that we are not in the best of times, and it's hard to find motivation if we don't have each other.
Thank you so much, Paro.
Thank you.
I'm going to remember this, carry this and take it to wherever I go. Thank you very much. I hope to see you someday. I hope to sit on that. You know, it's a very perverted desire to sit on that balcony that I'm always.
And windowsill.
Yeah, the windowsill with the pigeons and the pots and the nice tiles.
The two things I have made famous: my windowsill and my niece. By endless. My niece is not grateful, but my windowsill is.
You know, this is the thing, you know, because one thing I should tell you, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. We have, I think, 10 more minutes before apparently the license expires. I should say this. Because I am, every time I post something on Instagram, whether it's sharing my work or sharing a part of my life, I know that a lot of the other people might be thinking, but how is it that she's also Dalit and also so happy in life? And, but if she's this happy, isn't she Brahmin? You know, that people have said also. And there are very few people in the world I think of when I take Instagram very seriously. I take Instagram seriously because I feel very happy when people interact with each other on Instagram. I feel happy when I see your pictures and when I see other people sharing my work, or when I see people sharing my students' work. It just fills me with a lot of happiness. And apart from Asha, who I interviewed for Agents of Fish, you're the other woman who I think, not like the other woman, but you're the
no, I'm very used to being the other one. But why should anything change now?
You are the woman I think of when I think, should I be posting this? Isn't this like, you know, too much? And then I'm like, screw it, man. I love how Paromita Vohra curates herself on Instagram. Why can't I do this? I want to do the things that make me feel happy. And then I end up doing this, and there'll be at least like 5 people who message and say, you know, this is so cool. Keep doing more of this. So I think I owe you whatever little joy I'm conscious of, I owe it to you. So
thank you very much. This is too much for me to deal with. I'm going to eat potatoes after this. In violation of my diet.
If you're ever in Bangalore, I'd like to take you out for dinner and a nice treat of the Bangalore roads and the streets and the weathers and the trees. So thank you very much for gracing our Meta 2022. And
thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody who stayed for so long. See you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Lots of love.
Lots of love. Thank you. Bye.